I played Breath of the Wild for the first time when it came out in 2017, and as many of you, I consider it to be one of the best experiences I've ever had with a video game. A year later, we saw the release of the Champions Ballad DLC, right after the trailer presented during the Game Awards in 2018. The Champions Ballad represents the more important half of the Breath of the Wild expansion pass, which according to Nintendo would include a new dungeon and a new original story. Now, even though the trailer presented at the Game Awards was awesome, with Link riding a motorcycle, I was a bit disappointed with what the DLC was actually offering. The main story in Breath of the Wild is literally in the past. You basically watch Link's memories. And listen, this is a really clever concept. It managed to tell a non-linear story in an open game, linking every memory to a corner of the map and providing a reward to exploration. However, the lack of a linear, cohesive and in the present narrative created the feeling that everything of interest happens in the past. There are no big plot points or great surprises in the main plot. Even the ending leaves a lot to be desired, very different from past games in the series. When Nintendo said that the DLC would include a new original story, I thought of something bigger, maybe controlling Link in the past or even controlling another character, something like that. But none of that happened. Instead, the DLC provides more memories in a similar style to the ones in the base game. That's why I ended up not playing the Champions Ballad DLC in 2018, but now I finally finished the whole thing and I was really surprised. First of all, I was being kinda dumb reacting like, oh, it's just more Breath of the Wild, when it's actually holy shit, it's more Breath of the Wild. More shrines, more challenges, more dungeons, and more story. Why would I complain about that if I had the time of my life playing the base game? The DLC made me remember why the base game is so good, because it's been a while since I finished the game. The world and mechanics are so well crafted in Breath of the Wild that it leaves a lot of space for expansion. And hey, now there's a sequel in development, which is another reason for me to talk about the DLC. I see a big number of Zelda fans, me included, asking for a more classic Zelda style in the sequel. Traditional dungeons, traditional story, that classic style that we love so much. And I still want all of that back. But man, the final dungeon on the Champions Ballad is so good. I always liked the Divine Beasts as a concept, a contained dungeon where the player can control and change some elements of the architecture. But the Divine Trial on the DLC is where I think Nintendo managed to fully realize the concept. In my opinion, the Divine Trial is the best Divine Beasts. All the puzzles in the area are connected via a huge system of gears, and the player can freely change the direction in which they roll. You need to make clever use of your abilities, usually magneses, to connect the gears and make them work in the way that you want. I felt really clever when I managed to solve a puzzle, not exactly because it was hard, but because the solution was very different from what we saw in the base game. And to be honest, that feeling also extends to the other shrines in the DLC pack. So many clever puzzles, in particular I love the ones that require the use of electricity. There's some of those in the base game, but they really go beyond with it, requiring a big amount of thought to arrange everything without compromising the connection. I'm just scratching the surface here because some of those shrines are definitely among the best in the game. And all of that with the good old package of bombs, magneses, stasis and cryonis. We already know that Link will have new tools in the sequel. I don't know exactly what, but it seems that he can control time, pass through solid spaces, and he also possesses a magic hand. Imagine the possibilities. How many crazy puzzles can be produced with the same level of creativity from the DLC? After the Divine Trial, I really don't want to see the Divine Beasts and the shrines going away. I already established that the dungeon is great. But there's the cherry on top of the divine cake, the final boss, Maz Koshia. The way to kill him is no different from the many other bosses in the game, but the thing is, he has a crazy moveset full of different attacks. Similar to members of the Iga clan, he goes full Naruto on you. I really like the battle, it is pretty challenging with different phases and the fluctuating arena is simply epic. I think I prefer this battle to the actual final battle in the game. Once more, we have here proof that there's a lot to be improved in Breath of the Wild, and Nintendo was already doing that in the DLC. There's also the exploration aspect. In the DLC, to find the shrines, you need to use something similar to a satellite picture to decipher where exactly that place is, which is something very Breath of the Wild. They could easily mark a point in your map, but instead, they prefer to incentivize exploration, and that's always fun because the whole game is built for it. With the same map coming back at the sequel, I'm curious to know how they will keep exploration always engaging. Another aspect is the story. And being honest, I loved all the memories in the Champion's Ballad DLC. The first thing that I want to highlight, and I don't see people talking about that very often, is how Nintendo can create amazing scenes when they want to. I'm often baffled by the quality of animation in games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Super Mario Odyssey, and of course, Breath of the Wild, including the spin-off Age of Calamity. It's clear that they tried to fit an action scene in each of the memories, and I loved it. The result is a small burst of well-made action and dialogue in each scene. The DLC devolve a bit more into the personality of each champion, and all of them are really likable, even Rivali. Watching Daruk afraid of a dog or seeing how Mipha takes care of her little brother is just so wholesome, and the final scene was simply beautiful. Now, even though I liked all those memories, I hope we can see a different approach for the narrative in the sequel, maintaining the same quality of animation and writing, but with a plot that actually happens in the present. So far from what we've seen in the trailers, there's a very interesting premise, and I hope we see a bigger focus on the characters that are actually alive in that world. A final shout out to the motorcycle that you receive at the end of the game. It's not particularly fun to control, and it's really strange to not accelerate on the ZR button, but whatever, it's a motorcycle in a Zelda game and that's enough. As you can see, I really enjoyed my time with the DLC, and it made me even more hyped for the sequel. What's your take on that? Did you like the DLC? Until next time guys, bye!